Sports fans. In this segment, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the Lions game on Sunday. The first thing that stood out to me when I saw the game, aside from the fact that the Lions ended up winning their first home game in well over a year, were the broadcasters. I wasn't sure who the one guy was at first, and I definitely didn't know who the color commentator was. As it turned out, it was Dan Hellie and Aqib Talib. And I had no idea that Aqib Talib had suddenly become a broadcaster. I didn't even realize he had retired from playing in the NFL. But when I first heard him, I knew something wasn't quite, it wasn't quite up to the standards that I expect for color commentators, I'll put it that way. And then I found out after a while, and I think this was by the second quarter, maybe halftime, who it was, and I was floored. I was really floored. And then at the end of the game, when he was talking about, I've never broadcast an overtime game before, and Matt Stafford took the Lions, drove them down the field, and right about the time he said that, Matt Stafford completed the one pass that got him in field goal range right before Matt Prater kicked the game-winning 59-yard field goal, and I'm like, yes. I so badly wanted Matt Stafford to shut him up. It wasn't funny, and I'm glad he did that. There is a reason for this, for those of you who may not be familiar with this. And that is, before the Lions played the Buccaneers, the opening game of 2010, and bear in mind, Aqib Talib was playing for the Buccaneers at that time, he had called out Calvin Johnson before that game and really dogged him through the media. Calvin Johnson didn't say a word, and all he did is catch, I believe, 7 passes for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Lions ended, I believe, what was their 24-game road losing streak at that time, and they beat the Buccaneers 27-20. And never again, from that moment onward, did Aqib Talib, as far as I know, ever say a bad word about Calvin Johnson. And while Aqib Talib would later go on to win a Super Bowl while Calvin Johnson never won a playoff game, at least for one day, and probably a few others, Calvin Johnson got the better of him, which obviously made me happy being the Lions fan that I am. So it's kind of sweet revenge, and obviously Aqib Talib didn't learn from all those years ago about running his mouth and the like, but there are some other things he said that I will share with you on the Detroit Lions tomorrow on Saturday about his broadcast, about his color commentating, as well as Dan Hellie and some of the comments he made, which I thought were rather odd. But in any event, so that was one of the things. The other thing is that obviously, for those of you who know, the Lions built a 24-3 lead before the Redskins came back to tie it before Matt Prater's game-winning field goal. And yes, while the game looked like it was destined to go to overtime, it certainly should not have ever come down to that. And it's something, but not surprising to me, that Alex Smith had a career day against the Lions. He has typically played well against the Lions, and I believe before Sunday he'd never lost a game to them other than, I think, the 1 year he may have still been with the 49ers when Matt Stafford beat him towards the end of that season. But I'm thinking Alex Smith wasn't even playing for him at that time. So I do believe that the Lions had not beaten Alex Smith before Sunday. But again, I did not have an episode last Saturday, so I was not able to research that, nor did I before this show. But I will look into that, and I'll make any corrections necessary at the given time that I see that. It was good for the Lions to win anyway. I mean, it was a nail-biter, and I certainly don't think it got Matt Patricia or Bob Quinn off the hot seat by any means, but at least for 1 week, the Lions kept their playoff hopes alive to a certain extent, but to me, they really could have and probably ought to have beaten them by a few more points than just that game-winning field goal, to be sure. In the next segment, I'm going to be talking about the NCAA's plan for the men's basketball tournament, as far as I know it so far, for this upcoming season. Stay tuned to Sports with Ed on Ed's Sports Channel.